With billions of people spread across the globe, coincidences and bizarre things are bound to happen. We've all experienced weird situations no one can explain. These can be minor things or incredibly unbelievable happenings. Some people may have a common birthday, while others might abruptly encounter an old acquaintance vacationing abroad. But we assure you guys that these happenings are absolutely insignificant when compared to the several crazy coincidences recorded in human history. And in today's video, we'll tell you all about some insanely bizarre historical coincidences. Make sure you watch till the end and give this video a thumbs up so we can keep bringing the best stories for you. The luckiest, unluckiest man in the world. On the 6th of August 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was having a business trip to Hiroshima, but his fateful visit turned into a disastrous episode as the US dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima on the same day. He survived the searing heat of the atom bomb while standing about 2 miles away from ground zero while the sky erupted into a huge blaze of light. Tsutomu managed to get into a ditch. Miraculously, he survived, but there were 80,000 unlucky people who died. Severely injured Tsutomu traveled back to his home and reported to his office on August 9th. His boss asked him to narrate about the happening and refused to believe his story. Tsutomu was ready to explain the entire episode that he had witnessed. Meanwhile, the skyline outside was blown by another blinding white flash. They all dropped to the ground, whereas the office was shattered. Unfortunately, his office was located in the Japanese city of Nagasaki, which was also attacked by the US with an atom bomb. He rushed to look for his family. His house was in rubble, but again, luck sided with him. His wife and son were out of their home as his wife had gone to buy the ointment required for treating his burns. Tsutomu survived 2 nuclear bombs in 2 different cities on the same day. If that's not one lucky man, we don't know who is. He suffered from radiation burns but healed from those too and lived up to the age of 93. Heli hieroglyph. Recently in Egypt, a set of hieroglyphs were found above Pharaoh Seti I's temple in Abydos. The ancient writing depicts a helicopter, a plane, and a sort of futuristic aircraft. Pharaoh Seti I lived about 3,000 years ago, which makes this depiction quite strange and uncommon. Was this the work of aliens? Although the hieroglyph caused a frenzy, the explanation seems to be quite simple. In ancient Egypt, it used to be a common practice for hieroglyphs to be recarved, particularly when a new pharaoh assumed power. In this case, the original carving was generated during the reign of Seti I. Subsequently, during the reign of Ramses II, it was covered in plaster and recarved. Over time, the plaster eroded and revealed the original inscription. The combination of both inscriptions coincidentally seems to resemble modern technological vehicles. The President's Curse. All the US presidents between 1840 to 1960 who were elected in years having 0 at the end died in office. This strange phenomenon was spread over 120 years. People were convinced that it was a curse and was termed the Curse of Tippecanoe. Its history is traced back to the 1800s when the newly formed United States of America was expanding westwards. Native Americans formed a confederation led by the chieftain Tecumseh to resist the expansionist designs. He was assisted by his brother Tenskwatawa. In 1811 they were defeated in the Battle of Tippecanoe by the forces led by William Henry Harrison. The death of the brothers supposedly put a curse on Harrison. In 1840 Harrison became the 9th President of the United States, and just after serving for 1 month, he died. Subsequently, every president elected in a year ending with 0 died in the office, each having a gap of 20 years. By the time Ronald Reagan assumed the presidency in 1980, 20 years after J.F. Kennedy, First Lady Nancy Reagan was immensely scared and she hired a lot of psychics and astrologers to make efforts for protecting her husband. Probably they did their job successfully because despite an assassination attempt, Reagan survived. Therefore, the curse officially ended with President Reagan. Menace Madness. Those who are familiar with comic book strips would be aware of Dennis the Menace, a good-natured boy drawn to life by the US illustrator Hank Ketchum. Some of you might also be aware of a similar British comic book character also known to be Dennis the Menace. This character was created by the British cartoonist David Lahr and is also a troublemaker. Surprisingly, both comics were initially released on the same day. Both Dennises appeared for the first time on the 12th of March 1951 in their respective countries. It was a strange coincidence, as both writers could neither coordinate nor copy each other at that time when there was no internet. Shakespeare's Psalm. We all know about Shakespeare, famous for being a great British playwright, but who knew he wrote a part of the Bible? The words shake and spear have 4 vowels, A, E, E, A, and 6 consonants. Together it seems to be 6. In 1902, some bored person flicked to Psalm 46 and sifted through the Bible looking for something interesting in there. Surprisingly, they did find something peculiar. In King James Bible, if you flick to Psalm 46 and start counting words from the beginning and reach to the 46th, you find the word shake, and if you count backwards to the last word, you'll come across the 46th word from the end, that is, spear. The King James Bible was translated in around 1610 when Shakespeare was not even born at that time. Based on this coincidence, some eccentric conspiracy theorists believe that he had some role in writing the Bible. Handbags of the Gods. Humans carry their belongings in handbags, but what about gods? What do they do? You can find something about this by having a look at images carved by ancient civilizations. Take a look at this Assyrian or modern-day Iraq relief of the eagle-headed god Nisroch, belonging to around 880 BC. Now have a look at another relief of the Assyrian winged genie that had godlike powers. Both seem to hold handbags. This carving from ancient Mexico also depicts a handbag being carried. Thousands of years ago, ancient Assyrians and Mayans lived thousands of miles apart, but their gods seem to carry similar handbags. One group of experts believe that the shape represents a simple portrayal of the cosmos. In civilizations spread from Africa to China, a circle is associated with spirituality, whereas a square with the earthly concepts. Therefore, the semicircular handle represents the hemisphere of the sky, whereas the square base would be the earth. The simpler explanation can be that it's just a vessel for holding things. Stars and time. Some people seem to be capable of traveling back in time. Late pop star Michael Jackson could be one of them. He resembles an old mysterious painting dating back to the 17th century Germany. His face also seems to be carved on this ancient Egyptian statue, which is about 3,000 years old. The bust comes from roughly the same area as that of Tutankhamun. It's stunning. Let's look at climate activist Greta Thunberg. She also seems to be a partial time traveller. In 2019, a picture depicting 19th century 3 children working at an old Canadian gold mine went viral. A closer look at the girl on the left shows that she's the spitting image of Thunberg. These are some mind-boggling coincidences. Busted busts. If you take a look at Michael Jackson's weird bust, specifically at the nose, you can find a close resemblance with this 3,000-year-old Egyptian statue. Similar coincidences can be found with a few other ancient Egyptian busts. Just review these few with us. A serious question is, why do all of these have broken noses? For decades, historians thought that it might be a coincidence, but several statues were found inside and in well-preserved condition but had the same defect. Historians reckon that the noses were broken purposefully. Ancient Egyptians believed that when a person passed away, his spirit was transferred to the statues. Therefore, for demonstrating superiority, the reigning pharaohs would destroy the noses of their past adversaries' statues so that their spirits could not breathe. Some believe that robbers were to be blamed for this. Love note. A few years ago, a young American named Paul Gratchen was working in his local delivery while paying the cashier and noticed something strange. One of the bills he was holding had the name Esther scribed on it. It was the name of the girl he had seen the last week. He pocketed this note. Next week, he took Esther on a date and presented the note to her as a gift. She seemed shocked and a little bit disturbed, which made Paul confused. For the next 2 years, their relationship blossomed without mention of the bill, and they got married. While they were shifting their apartment, the bill again popped up, and the confession by Esther that she had written her name on the bill proved to be insane. A few years back, she was stuck up in an unhappy relationship, and in desperation, she scribed her name on a few dollar bills. She prayed that she would marry the person who would return one of these dollar bills to her. So she accepted Paul as her soulmate when he offered her the bill. Phenomenal photograph. In 2014, a happy British couple, Amy Maiden and Nick Wheeler, were all set to marry. While looking over the old family photo album at Nick's grandparents' house, they came across this picture which surprised them. Nick is sitting in the front, whereas Amy can be seen behind him on the left. They were astonished as they had not met until 11 years after the photo was taken. It was a pleasant coincidence that the future couple had been enjoying a day on the beach as kids. Although Amy lived nearby and both families were on vacation, and both being at the beach was a very rare incident. Presently, Amy and Nick live just a few minutes' walk from the spot where their photo was taken. Seven-headed somethings. In 2016, a strange image showing a mysterious seven-headed figure carved into the rock and dating back to 5000 BC was circulated on the internet. It seems to be some sort of snake deity originally from Siberia. Strangely, snake deities with 7 heads are not being part of the ancient Siberian culture. However, in ancient Mexico, people used to worship a goddess called Chicomecoatl, which translates to 7 serpents. This Mexican carving has striking similarities with the one found in Siberia. In India, Hindus worship the serpent goddess Menace, which is also depicted with 7 heads. It's a great coincidence that these cultures, separated by thousands of miles, have the same religious symbolism. It's a well-known fact that snakes used to be revered by ancient people all over the world. Snakes' ability to shed their skins made ancient Semites and Mesopotamians consider them immortal, whereas Hindus considered it an act of reincarnation. In the past, humans have been having a weird affinity with the number 7, like the 7 wonders of the ancient world, 7 colors in the rainbow, and the same love might be related to deities with 7-headed serpents. Trumpets of War. Would you believe that the 3 major wars of the 20th century were caused by an ancient trumpet that was owned by Tutankhamun? The British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922. He also discovered 2 trumpets, one copper and another silver, buried with the pharaoh. These were originally used to call troops of the pharaoh on the battlefield. Radio presenter Rex Keating heard about these in 1939. He sought permission to use these in a broadcast. In the spring of 1939, a trumpeter on his show used the trumpet to play a melody to an audience of 150 million people. The same year, World War II broke out. The trumpets were returned to the Egyptian Museum. In 1967, a member of staff blew into the silver one, and the 6-day war between Israel and the Arabs broke out. Once again, in 1990, the trumpet was blown and the Gulf War was its consequence. In 2011, once again, some staff members blew the trumpet, which resulted in a violent Egyptian revolution. Seriously, how many more wars will it take for people to stop blowing this trumpet? The Way of the Dragon. Stories of dragons seem to be prevalent in every culture all over the world. You can find tales of flying wingless serpents in China dating back to more than 5,000 years, whereas in Iran, narrations about azdahas, giant serpent-like creatures in Iran which lived on the land, in the sea and in the air a few thousand years ago. Similarly, all over central Mexico, we can trace back to the 1200s stories about the great feathered snake called Quetzalcoatl, and in European folklore we can hear about winged beings resembling lizards which breathed fire, with depictions going back to 1260. The most puzzling aspect is that these depictions arose in different cultures and different eras when the world's populations were practically isolated from each other. Makes you wonder what led to the portrayal of similar creatures by different cultures that were never exposed to each other. It is an epoch coincidence. One explanation states that ancient people discovered dinosaur fossils and extrapolated wildly as to what these looked like. The shapes and size of these skeletal remains have shown close similarities to a T-Rex or Diplodocus. Another theory considers that these are inspired by actual animals such as the Incan Amaru that possesses approximately llama-like characteristics. Similarly, Apep, the Egyptian mythical serpent from the Nile, seems to be crocodilian and close to eel-like in the description. Dragons continue to be a part of different cultures even today. In 2017, a group of Chinese pranksters laid out supposed dragon bones in a field which measured 60 feet long. So, did you enjoy learning about these mind-blowing coincidences? Do tell us in the comments which one you think was the weirdest. We'll be back soon with more amazing content for you guys. Until then, have a great time and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.